Ass Freak was so infamous that a torrent of scornful abuse was lavished on him. The young men who were paying came to them, and one of them with harsh, angular features curiously looked at Han Sen and said, "You are the legendary Ass Freak." Yes, Han Sen answered casually. He did not think it was a bad thing, because in the entire steel armor shelter, he was the only one who had ever stabbed King Xuan in the butt. This was a kind of achievement in a sense. The young man was obviously curious about Han Sen. Suddenly he said, "You are also here for the job." Han Sen nodded. "If you don't like the idea, I can go right now." "No, if you do not have any questions, we can sign the contract right here," the young man quickly said. A roar went up in the crowd as they heard the young man's decision. Even the young man's friends looked surprised. They pulled the young man to the side and said, "Yuan, that's Ass Freak. What are you going to do with him?" "That's right, Yuan. If we are in danger, he will probably run even faster than us. It's just a waste of money. I've hired him, and you can choose the rest." The young man named Yuan insisted and signed the contract with Han Sen. The others didn't say much after that and selected several more candidates who looked experienced. Han Hao showed them his mutant beast soul weapon and was chosen. The two coming with Han Hao showed some skill and got the job as well. "Ass Freak, you got lucky thanks to your young master's kindness and curiosity," Liu Feng, one of the two, said when walking past Han Sen. "My luck has always been good," Han Sen said faintly. The clients had selected 10 experienced men to protect them in hunting primitive creatures. With such a team, they could even hunt primitive creatures by herd. Those who had been hired were in a good mood and tried to flatter the clients all the time. They clearly understood the background of these young men who were paying them. The clients actually had very good fighting skills, and they must have graduated from posh schools. Although they had just entered God's sanctuary, their fitness and skills were much better than Han Sen's when he had just arrived. They were only lacking the experience of hunting. When the clients were hunting primitive creatures, Han Sen was just practicing archery on the side. Initially, he had chosen to practice archery because it was less demanding than other weapons. He was unlikely to be able to learn advanced techniques of sword or knife fighting in the public education system, while all he needed for archery was accuracy. Han Sen was still getting to know the performance and characteristics of Doomsday, so he had selected some of the trees nearby as his targets to practice on. "Ass Freak, you are just taking up space. Why are you shooting in vain and ignoring our clients?" Liu Feng was confused by Han Sen's behavior and looked at his shots contemptuously. "You can't even shoot something within 60 feet. Han Sen did not look at Liu Feng or reply to him. He was just trying the arrow and did not focus on one target, and that was why his shots looked messy. Just let him be. It was just a charity act. Our clients didn't expect him to help at all." Other hired hands laughed. "That is true. Just be grateful, Ass Freak." Liu Feng spit and joined the rest. "Do not say you know me." Han Hao found a chance to whisper to Han Sen and went back to laugh with his friends. The clients were making incredible progress. In the beginning, they needed some assistance, while they soon became better and could hunt some rather vicious primitive creatures one-on-one. Indeed, posh schools had great teaching outcomes. Those who were in integrated compulsory education wouldn't dare to hunt primitive creatures alone with no previous experience. It went so well that everyone lost their vigilance. When the clients were hunting 3 primitive spotted beasts, one of the beasts played dead and attacked a young client when he approached it. Han Hao and others didn't expect this, and the spotted beast was too close to the client for them to rescue him. In an instant, the claws of the spotted beast were on the delicate neck of the young man. The young client was horrified, regretting that he wasn't wearing his alloy helmet. But it was too late for that. Everyone watching screamed in horror. Whoosh! An arrow flew by the client's face and hit the spotted beast in the left eye. The beast whimpered and fell to the ground. Han Hao and the rest swarmed to the spotted beast and cut its corpse into pieces. "Ass Freak, why did you shoot the arrow? You almost hurt King." Liu Feng turned around and scolded Han Sen. Other people all followed him, criticizing Han Sen. They were secretly ashamed, but instead of self-reflection, they chose to blame Han Sen. In their view, Han Sen just shot the beast by pure luck, because Ass Freak could never be so good at anything. "Get lost," Yuan suddenly shouted with a dark face. "Did you hear that, Ass Freak? Yuan just asked you to go," cried Liu Feng. "I'm letting you go." Yuan stared at Liu Feng coldly. "I paid you to protect us, and what did you do when King was in danger? Nothing. And you even tried to blame the only person who did his job. All of you, get lost, and I don't want to see you again. Yuan, you can let us go, but according to our contract, this is a breach. You will have to pay us the rest of the money," sneered Liu Feng. "Just go." Yuan threw a few stacks of money at them and didn't look at them again. Liu Feng and the rest picked up the money. Although they were angry, they didn't dare to harm the clients because they knew who these young clients were. They gazed at Han Sen and said, "Misters, we are far from the shelter, so please be careful, as you are trusting someone unreliable." "He is 100 times more reliable than you," Yuan replied. The hired ones didn't dare to express their anger in front of Yuan, so they just left. "Ass, your arrow was so powerful," commended King after the rest were chased away. He didn't want to call Han Sen ass freak but awkwardly discovered that he didn't know his name. His rating must have reached 7.0 to use Doomsday. "Of course it was powerful," said Yuan. 7.0. But they said that he, King and the other clients looked at Han Sen and his bow, unconvinced. After all, the story of Ass Freak was so well known that even they knew about it. I mean at least 7.0. He shot so many arrows in practice, and if his strength hadn't reached 8.0, it would certainly not be so easy for him, Yuan said, looking at Han Sen. 8.0. They were even more surprised and kept looking at Han Sen as if they hadn't seen him before. Anyone with an 8.0 rating would be rather advanced in First God's Sanctuary, so they couldn't believe Ass Freak would be so strong. "Let me try your bow." One client still didn't believe Yuan's words. Han Sen smiled and handed Doomsday to him. The young client held it with both hands and tried to pull the string, but the string didn't even move. He tried a few times more and still failed to draw the string. Although they graduated from top schools and had practiced hyper-geno arts as kids, their bodies hadn't been modified by geno points, so their strength could reach 3.5 at best, which was far below the requirement to use Doomsday. "You are so weak. Let me." Another client could not stand to watch and grabbed the bow. He too had failed after a few tries. Everyone gave it a shot except for Yuan, and none could draw the string. Only then had they felt impressed by Han Sen. Archery was practiced by very few people and required a lot of effort, so most people didn't know much about bows and arrows, let alone how good Doomsday was. For example, Han Hao and his friends had no idea that Han Sen's bow was worth millions, or they wouldn't have ridiculed him like that. The clients stopped underestimating Han Sen, not least because Han Sen also had saved King's life. They asked his name and called him Sen from then on. After all, God's Sanctuary was a world where only the strong were respected, and Han Sen's archery and strength were truly impressive. "Sen, would you show us real archery skills?" King proposed. All the other clients looked at Han Sen with great anticipation. "My archery skills are just ordinary," Han Sen laughed. "Don't be modest. When one is being too modest, one is actually proud," King said. "Okay, I will try to shoot then." Han Sen also itched to exercise his skills. Since he received Doomsday, he hadn't tested its limits yet. The clients were overjoyed. Han Sen looked around and walked to a hillside. He aimed at something and slowly drew a saber arrow. As he drew the string, blue and swollen veins popped on his arms. The arrow left the string in the blink of an eye and disappeared in the woods. Did he miss? King and others didn't hear any prey being hit and thought he had missed. "It is too far away. The woods must be at least 400 yards from here. It is understandable to miss," said King. "Come on, let's go and find out," Han Sen said and walked down the hill into the woods. The clients followed with suspicion. 100 meters into the woods, they saw a spotted beast nailed on a tree with an arrow through its head. "No wonder we did not hear a thing." The arrow directly destroyed the nerves of the spotted beast and it didn't even have time to shriek. Everyone was so impressed. It was at least 400 yards from where Han Sen had been standing, and the beast was killed with just one shot. Han Sen's archery must be among the best in First God's Sanctuary. After that, all the clients worshipped Han Sen and did everything he said. Han Sen protected them for half a month and received 150,000 in cash. The clients wanted to sign a long-term contract with Han Sen, but he declined. He was only short of money at the moment. In the long run, he still needed to focus on his own evolution. Han Sen returned to Steel Armor Shelter alone and was stopped by those who had been chased away by Yuan at the gate. These men were led by Liu Feng, and Han Hao was also among them. "Ass Freak, you have really pissed me off. How can you make it up to me?" asked Liu Feng, cracking his knuckles while slowly approaching Han Sen. A crowd of spectators started to gather. They were used to seeing Han Sen getting bullied. "How do you want me to compensate you?" said Han Sen calmly, watching Liu Feng approaching him. "Let me kick your ass," Liu Feng said, throwing a punch at Han Sen's face. Liu Feng's punch was fierce and fast. If Han Sen was hit, his nose would be smashed. When everyone was thinking that he would suffer, Han Sen leaned his body and dodged the punch. Meanwhile, he tripped Liu Feng with his leg and made him fall on his face. Liu Feng fell so hard that his nose was bleeding and his eyes were watering. Burning with anger, he drew his alpha alloy broadsword from the sheath and slashed it toward Han Sen. "Little scum. How dare you resist? I'll kill you. Han Hao had mixed feelings watching this. Although he despised Han Sen was still his cousin, and Han Hao felt terrible watching him being bullied and perhaps getting killed. But if he helped Han Sen and people knew him to be the cousin of Ass Freak, how could he stay at Steel Armor Shelter? Having hesitated for a while, Han Hao turned his face to the side, deliberately avoid seeing Han Sen. Han Hao thought that he would immediately hear Han Sen's screams, but the screams he heard were not from Han Sen, but from Liu Feng. Han Hao quickly turned to see what had happened and couldn't believe his own eyes. Liu Feng's Alpha Alloy Broadsword was now in Han Sen's hand and Liu Feng himself was pinned to the ground with his arm twisted behind himself, screaming while too scared to struggle. Han Hao did not see how it happened, but others all saw clearly. They were so surprised that they stood there with their mouths wide open. When Liu Feng slashed his broadsword at Han Sen, everyone thought Ass Freak was doomed. But as soon as Liu Feng wielded the Alpha Alloy Broadsword, Han Sen grabbed his hand and twisted, bringing Liu Feng to his knees. Han Sen then knocked his back with a knee and held him down to the floor. No one could believe that Ass Freak would have such fine movements and were all in a daze. There was no sound except for Liu Feng's screams. "What are you doing? Kill this bastard." "Ouch," Liu Feng shouted to the onlookers while screaming. Crack. His arm was broken by Han Sen before he could even finish the sentence. Covered in cold sweat, Liu Feng was deathly pale. Liu Feng's friends saw this and rushed to Han Sen, raising their weapons. Han Sen was still holding Liu Feng's Alpha Alloy Broadsword in his hand, and used it to block the first alloy weapon swung at him. To his surprise, the weapon was cut in half by Liu Feng's broadsword instantaneously. This dumbass had a really nice Alpha Alloy Broadsword. "It's at least worth 1 or 2 million, Han Sen thought and decided not to give it back. In a short while, all the other weapons were cut off by Han Sen, and their owners were scared off. No one dared to attack Han Sen anymore. Han Hao was stunned, almost thinking he was in a dream. Liu Feng had a strength rating of 6.7 and a nice weapon, so he enjoyed quite a lot of attention in Steel Armor Shelter. Although Han Hao had a Mutant Beast Soul weapon, he knew he could not match Liu Feng. All of a sudden, Liu Feng became the one lying on the floor without his weapon, while Han Sen became the winner. The change was so drastic that Han Hao couldn't process it. Hadn't he been isolated by both Qin Xuan and Son of Heaven since he entered the shelter? Didn't he fail to hunt even a primitive creature? Didn't he? Han Hao looked at Han Sen blankly, with a variety of complex emotions entangled in his mind. Han Sen did not continue the fight with the rest, but went back to take Liu Feng's sheath away, hung the sheath on his own belt, and returned his new broadsword to his new sheath. "The next time you want compensation, just come to me," said Han Sen as he strode toward the gate of Steel Armor Shelter. The onlookers all looked at him as if it was the first time they saw him. "Stop!" Someone approached riding a beast soul mount when Han Sen was about to enter the gate. It was Luo Tianyong, Son of Heaven's henchman. "Luo, Ass Freak broke my arm and seized my broadsword. You have to avenge me," shouted Liu Feng in delight at the sight of Luo Tianyong. "Douchebag." Luo Tianyong first glanced at Liu Feng and then at Han Sen. "I was wondering who was so daring to hurt my guy." "So, it was you, scum." Luo Tianyong took out his alloy whip and whacked it at Han Sen. Han Sen paused and wielded his broadsword at the whip. When the two weapons collided, Han Sen and Luo Tianyong both shuddered. Luo Tianyong suddenly shouted, "How come you have such strength?" Luo Tianyong's own strength rating had reached 9.6. Although with this whack he did not use all his strength, Han Sen must have had at least an 8.0 rating to be able to block his whip, which he could not believe. This person must die. Luo Tianyong suddenly had an urge to kill Han Sen and was about to raise his whip again. When he looked at Han Sen, however, he stopped and his whole body became tense. Han Sen had put away the broadsword and held Doomsday in his hands. Drawing the string to the fullest, he pointed the arrowhead at Luo Tianyong. Although Luo Tianyong did not recognize Doomsday, thanks to his rich experience of fighting, he could smell danger from Han Sen and his bow, and stayed completely still. The two were into a deadlock. Luo Tianyong did not dare to move, and Han Sen did not have the confidence to kill Luo Tianyong with only one shot. Even time seemed to stand still. The onlookers were completely shocked. When Han Sen beat Liu Feng and his friends, they simply couldn't believe it, and now he was even well matched with Luo Tianyong. Luo Tianyong was one of Son of Heaven's henchmen. His strength rating was near 10.0, and even he didn't dare to move with Han Sen's arrow pointed at him. Anyone with a strength rating of more than 9.0 would be among the top 100 in Steel Armor Shelter, where there were more than 100,000 people. That someone like this could be scared by Han Sen was an overwhelming fact to all. No one knew how Han Sen could gain such strength when isolated by both Qin Xuan and Son of Heaven. Han Sen, put down your bow, said Qin Xuan, leading her gang, who were all riding beast soul mounts. Han Sen put away his bow and arrow. His strength was still weaker than Luo Tianyong, and Han Sen was not sure if he could shoot his opponent when Luo had his guard up. Keeping the posture was consuming his energy very fast, and the deadlock was not good for Han Sen. Miss Qin, I'll kill this bastard for you, said Luo Tianyong, whipping at Han Sen, who had already disarmed himself. Han Sen seemed to be prepared for this and was about to block the whip with Doomsday. Before he acted, a beast soul bronze sword was thrown over and hit the whip. The strength of the throw was so fierce that the whip fell from Luo Tianyong's hand. I will discipline my guy, and you can mind your own business. Qin Xuan looked at Luo Tianyong coldly and summoned back her sword before she rode into the shelter. Follow me. Qin Xuan turned back and commanded Han Sen. Han Sen quickly caught up with her and followed her gang into the shelter. The entire steel armor shelter was suddenly in an uproar. Ass Freak beat Liu Feng and his friends, was well matched against Luo Tianyong and was, most importantly, declared by Qin Xuan to be her guy. All the news had driven everyone mad. No one understood what had happened, it was all guesswork. Did they develop a love affair from the stab? I have to learn from Ass Freak and stab a beautiful and capable woman in the ass. Maybe I can become rich and powerful. Qin Xuan looks so serious, but she is actually a flirt. Rumors spread across the entire steel armor shelter, and Han Sen was once again put under the spotlight. However, Han Sen's strength was not really the focus. People cared more about whether he was Qin Xuan's boy toy. Even Qin Xuan's gang would look at Han Sen weirdly. You know archery? Asked Qin Xuan after she called Han Sen to a hall. I used to practice, Han Sen shrugged. You can use Doomsday, so you must have worked hard on it, said Qin Xuan matter-of-factly. You can join Bullseye and follow me in the future. No, Han Sen refused. Qin Xuan bit her lips and said snappily, you just offended Luo Tianyong. Without my protection, do you suppose he'd let you live? Thank you for your kindness, but I will deal with it myself, Han Sen said indifferently. You should have known who I am. My men are more or less related to the military, and Bullseye belongs to me. Follow me and you will gain great advantages when applying for military schools. Qin Xuan suppressed her anger and said to Han Sen, I never wanted to go to a military school. Han Sen knew that he could apply to a military school for further education after he finished integrated compulsory education. However, all military schools had high requirements of fitness. If one's fitness index was below 10 before the first evolution, one had no chance at military schools. For Han Sen, to reach 10 in the fitness index was not hard, but he wasn't interested in going to school at all. He'd rather put more effort into hunting. Exasperated, Qin Xuan said, without education from military school and an aristocratic title, you could only be an ordinary soldier when you are of age to serve. Only through a military school can you become something in the army. At least by then you wouldn't have been sacrificed. Let's talk about this another time. I have to go now, and thank you so much for all your help. I'll buy you dinner sometime, said Han Sen, ready to go back. He knew that what Qin Xuan said made sense, but he had his own plan. He wanted to get an aristocratic title before he turned 20 and went to serve, because aristocrats had certain privileges in the army and would not be sent to the front. Stop. Have I excused you? Qin Xuan stared at Han Sen fiercely. Station master, please, that's not my thing, said Han Sen bitterly. It's fine if you don't want to go. Qin Xuan suddenly smiled at Han Sen and said, if you do not go, each time you enter the teleport station, I will fight you. Looking at her evil smile, Han Sen's heart sank. He knew that Qin Xuan hadn't tried her best at all when fighting with him in the past, because he was no match for her at the moment. Judging from her expression, he knew if he declined, he would really have a hard time in the future. I'll just join Bullseye then, Han Sen said, depressed. Qin Xuan snapped at Han Sen. Do you have any idea how many people in Steel Armor Shelter want to join my gang? And you just acted like I've asked you to take poison. Freedom is priceless, and to lose my freedom is exactly like taking poison. Han Sen sighed. Then you could die a slow death. Even if you died and became a ghost, you'd still be my ghost, Qin Xuan pouted and said. Han Sen knew that Qin Xuan had made up her mind, and he accepted the offer unwillingly. Feeling dejected, he left the hall. Qin Xuan watched him go and was very pleased by his upset look for some strange reason. She couldn't help but smile. Station master, why do you have to recruit such a person to our steel armor gang? He's not worthy of being a member of Bullseye. A woman of the same age as Qin Xuan came out from a side door and asked after Han Sen had left. Manly, trust me, although this guy can be a bastard sometimes, he does have great potential in some aspects, Qin Xuan told Yang Manly seriously. Qin Xuan had witnessed what a fast learner and diligent student Han Sen was. Repeatedly defeated by her, He didn't go down but grew stronger and stronger. Now even she had to take him seriously. Such progress and mentality were truly amazing. King Xuan's opinions of Han Sen had improved a great deal, or else she wouldn't have defended him in front of everyone. Han Sen returned to his room and teleported back home before King Xuan had the chance to leave God's sanctuary. He was not the least interested in going to a military school. Before, it would have been a great option for him, because he could learn hyper-geno arts there. Now, with Jadeskin, he didn't have to waste his time in a military school at all. It would be much wiser for him to spend time hunting and increasing his geno points. As for Bullseye, Han Sen had even less interest in joining. Son, today I have something important at work. Can you take Yan to school? Luo Sulan knocked on the door and asked Han Sen. School has started already. I did not know that. No worries, Mom. I'll take her, Han Sen quickly said. School started a few days ago, and you were in God's sanctuary, so I didn't want to bother you, said Luo Sulan. Which school is it? Asked Han Sen. It is St. Paul, and I used the money you left to pay the tuition. Luo Sulan felt slightly uneasy, as she had spent almost all the money on Yan's school. Great. St. Paul is the best on planet Roka except for the posh schools. Han Sen was very happy. He didn't have an aristocratic title for the moment and couldn't send Yan to a posh school. But a good private school is still much better than integrated compulsory education. After chatting with his mother, Han Sen took Han Yan on a maglev train to school. The entrance of St. Paul was almost blocked by private aircrafts, and some of them were deluxe. Almost all rich people without an aristocratic title would send their children to St. Paul. And almost all students here were from affluent families. Walking his sister to school, Han Sen saw a middle-aged fat guy getting off an aircraft with a flirtatious woman on his side and an 8-year-old boy in his arms. He paused, as the middle-aged fat guy happened to be his uncle, Han Lei. What are you doing here? Han Lei was surprised to see Han Sen here. Taking Yan to school, replied Han Sen. Yan is coming to St. Paul. Han Lei looked at Han Sen and Han Yan, unconvinced. Since a few days ago, Han Sen said, ready to walk Han Yan into the school gate. Han Lei thought for a while and ran in front of Han Sen. He grabbed Han Sen's wrist and raged, I knew it. My elder brother managed the company for so many years, he must have embezzled lots of money. You were just lying to me about not being able to come up with 2 million, while you are now spending millions to send Yan to St. Paul. I'm telling you, this money belonged to the whole family. Just like the house. We must split it, or I'll. Or what? What can you do about it? Han Sen looked at Han Lei coldly. He was completely disappointed in his relatives and wouldn't give them a cent more. Boy, watch it. And your uncle. Han Lei flinched with Han Sen watching him, but he didn't plan to let Han Sen walk free. Uncle? Han Sen smiled dismissively. Well, please go home and review the legal documents we signed and see if you have the right to anything we own. From now on, do not think you can take a penny from us ever again. The reason why Han Sen gave them 2 million so promptly was to draw a line between his relatives and his real family. To get the 2 million, his relatives all signed a document prepared by Mr. Zhang which made it impossible for them to take anything from Han Sen's family in the future. That is fraud. I'll go find your mom right away. How dare you hide money from us? Cried Han Lei angrily. Uncle, don't even think about it. I have the right to kill a trespasser. Han Sen looked at Han Lei gloomily. Little brat, how dare? Han Lei threw a punch at Han Sen furiously. With a blank expression, Han Sen grabbed Han Lei's arm and threw Han Lei over his own shoulder. Han Lei shouted out in pain. Uncle, if you want to die, welcome to our house. Han Sen stared at Han Lei coldly. Han Lei opened his eyes wide, as if he didn't know Han Sen. The look on Han Sen's face had terrified him. Han Lei was an evolver, although just by maxing out on primitive geno points. He didn't really do much in Second God's Sanctuary, but he was still an evolver. It was abnormal that Han Sen, who hadn't evolved at all, could give him a shoulder throw easily. His nephew suddenly looked like a different person. Han Sen suddenly smiled and pulled Han Lei up. I'm sure my aunt doesn't know about this woman and child. I think I should talk to her, Han Sen whispered, while Han Lei was still shocked by his sudden change. You think my wife will believe you? Han Lei said madly. That doesn't matter as long as she believes this. Han Sen showed Han Lei the comlink on his wrist. He turned the video camera on the moment he saw Han Lei. You, shocked. Han Lei reached to grab the comlink. Han Sen only moved slightly to make Han Lei fall again. Uncle, we can negotiate a price and I can sell you this. Han Sen smiled and was about to pull him up again. Han Lei grinned and suddenly reached to twist Han Sen's hand, ready to break it and seize his comlink. Han Sen flipped his hand and held Han Lei's hand down, making him kneel on the floor and howl like a pig. Uncle, it seems that you have no intention to negotiate. I'll have to show it to my aunt then. Han Sen released Han Lei's hand and turned to leave. Wait. Han Lei quickly stopped Han Sen and gritted his teeth. 10,000. I'll give you 10,000 and you delete it. Han Sen turned away. 200,000 or I'll go to my aunt. Okay, said Han Lei, limping over to take hold of Han Sen. Thanks then, cash or bank transfer? Han Sen asked with a faint smile. Han Lei unwillingly transferred 200,000 to Han Sen. Well, now can you delete it? Of course I will delete it, but only when I'm in a good mood, Han Sen said and walked away. Brat, you lied to me. Han Lei became furious and raised his fist. However, he froze at the sight of Han Sen, as his nephew's movements had really left a strong impression. Uncle, I received your money so I will certainly delete it, but I did not say when I will do it, so you'd better keep me in a good mood. Han Sen patted Han Lei on the shoulder and stopped smiling. He whispered, also, do not let me see you in my home again, otherwise I will kill you. Han Lei shuddered, and for some reason, he knew Han Sen meant it. *T. The brat has become so evil. Han Lei cursed as Han Sen moved away. Ashamed that he was terrified by a boy, Han Lei was still nervous deep down and changed his mind about going to Han Sen's home. After sending Yan to school, Han Sen was in a great mood. On his way back, he saw a physical test center and went in, wanting to know his current physical fitness level. In the unevolved test hall of the physical test center, Zhao Bashan looked at a level displayed on the virtual screen and was secretly feeling proud of himself. In order to get a level in the test, an unevolved person must reach more than 10.0 in at least 100 items, including strength, speed, quickness, leaping ability, muscle toughness, bone strength, and organ function. With a level fitness, one was also very likely to be admitted into a military school, as long as one didn't make a huge mistake during the entrance exam. In his fantasy, Zhao Bashan had already graduated from a military school with stellar scores and become a captain of an interstellar warship, directing battles in the space, and receiving respect and worship after all his victories. I didn't do that well in the live combat tests. If I had done better, I might be assessed to A level. Maybe I'll try again. Zhao Bashan went back, but found the test hall he had used was occupied. Zhao Bashan thought the testing process was quite short, so he decided he might as well wait there. But after he had waited for quite a while, the person inside still hadn't come out. So slow. This person inside must be stupid. If I had gone to a different hall, I would have finished by now. Zhao Bashan was quite upset but not willing to give up. Zhao Bashan gave it some thought and paid to observe the test. Suddenly, the holographic image was projected in front of him. I wonder how dumb this person could be to take so long. Zhao Bashan looked to the golden figure in the holographic image. That person in the image was about to take the final test, the robot channel. The robot channel was the last part of the entire test. In the 300 feet long one-way channel, one had to beat a combat robot with biochemical alloy shell every 6 feet, and the performance of combat robots was stronger and stronger toward the end. As an unevolved, being able to cross the 180 feet line was pass, 210 feet line was good, 240 feet line was excellent, 270 feet line was advanced, and going all the way was super. Zhao Bashan had earned a good score himself, but he might be able to pass the 240 feet line if he put in more effort. This is weird. How come it took him so long? Zhao Bashan felt strange, as all the tests before this one should have taken the same amount of time. What he didn't know was that Han Sen actually took each test twice, the first time without beast souls and the second time with beast souls, so as to know his abilities under different circumstances. That's why it took Han Sen so long. In fact, Han Sen had already been through the robot channel twice. This time, he summoned Black Beetle Armor and Bloody Slayer at the same time and wanted to try the robot channel one last time under his best conditions. When Zhao Bashan saw clearly the golden figure, he was amazed by how great the Bloody Slayer and Black Beetle Beast Souls looked. *T. This guy wants to use Beast Souls to take the robot channel test. Well, even so he could hardly go all the way, unless. While Zhao Bashan was still thinking, the majestic golden figure had rushed toward the robot channel. Boom. What happened next rendered Zhao Bashan speechless. The golden figure ignored all combat robots trying to block him and forcefully went through with his strong body. The combat robot, which was much heavier than the man, was knocked away immediately. The golden figure was like an armored vehicle, brutally hitting his way through the combat robots. Even the robots' biochemical alloy shells were smashed. Nothing could stop that figure. 30 feet, 60 feet, 90 feet, 180 feet, 210 feet, 240 feet, Zhao Baoshan knew that the performance of the combat robots placed behind the 240 feet line was beyond the ability of average unevolved persons, but they were smashed by the golden figure as if they were a pile of clunkers. The robot channel that was viewed as a cruel test by most unevolved became an easy path for the golden figure. Unmatched strength. All combat robots in the channel, including the last one, were knocked away within seconds. Zhao Baoshan opened his mouth and didn't recover from shock for a long time. When he looked at the virtual screen, it already changed to SSS level. OMG, who is this fierce fellow? Zhao Baoshan saw the door of the test hall open and the person in the hall was gone. Zhao Baoshan immediately chased him out, but the center was so crowded and he had no idea who that person was. The video. Zhao Baoshan ran back to the hall, paid to play the recorded video, and made a copy. Having watched the video a few times, he regretted that he didn't see the golden figure's performance before the last test. Zhao Baoshan suddenly had an idea. He logged into his account and uploaded this copy to the official forum, and named it 788 Robot Channel Conquered. That will be all for now. I hope you find this story interesting. Leave a like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you won't miss the next part of this story. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.